it's okay to like your Dyson hair wrap. Like, it is a great product, right? And it's okay to care about, and you should care about, gun laws and the safety of your little Black boy that you are raising in Tennessee. We should not feel like we have to compartmentalize our interests, right? Like, men don't have to do that. No man is ever asked to do that.
Hey everyone, I'm Morgan Debaun, a passionate entrepreneur and life advisor. With the Journey podcast, you'll discover that success isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who've taken control of their lives. Join me on my own journey to discover the secret sauce behind reaching success with permission from no one else. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Journey podcast. I am here with Nikki Ogunnaike. I'm so excited for her to join us today. We are going to talk all things fashion, all things business, and also we're going to talk a little bit about media. We're going to talk a little bit about trends coming up for the fall. Nikki is an incredible executive in media. She is a fashion leader. She is part of this renaissance of incredible Black women who have gotten to the forefront of some of the hardest jobs to get in, frankly, the world. And so incredibly exclusive. We're so honored to have her here today. And I did not say this, but she's the editor-in-chief of Marie Claire. So
It's
hello.
true.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Morgan. I'm so excited to be here.
Selfish thing to admit. I am not a fashion girly, and my team and I have recently been like, wait, why don't I get invited to all these things? Now, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. So my hypothesis is that I'm a techie person. I came up in the techie world, and I don't live in New York and I don't live in LA anymore. And so I'm not invited to the stuff. So let's first just start with, how does the fashion world work? Because it seems very opaque to me. And I am just so curious. How does it break it down?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting about the fashion world, and when people refer to it as the fashion world, is that, like, at the end of the day, it's an industry, it's a business, as is any other sort of business that's like operating out here, right? So, you know, when I look at sort of the things that are going on in like Silicon Valley, or these like bigwig tech conferences where everyone's like gathering in, what's the one, like Davos or whatever, like all of those secret places where people are gathering, I'm sort of like, oh, I would love to be in those rooms. But they are, especially when you think about like fashion shows and that sort of things, like fashion shows at the end of the day, or when they started, are trade shows, right? And so it was just like newspaper editors, magazine editors, buyers, like looking at the fashion and then distilling it for their audiences. And that would take like months on end, right? Because it was just like a couple of people in a room distilling these trends and then disseminating it wide to these various audiences. Now, the fashion industry and the fashion world has completely changed, and in part has become democratized because of social media, because of television, which I think is a really good thing. But I think that sometimes people forget that, like, at the end of the day, it is a job. Like, this is my job, right? It's a part of my life, and it's definitely extremely glamorous. Like, I won't drag it. Like, it is a very glamorous job, but it is a job at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's maybe something, as like a consumer of the content and the glamour of it all, we don't fully understand, is the economics and the trades that are happening at these trade shows in person. You know, Milan Fashion Week was last week. Of course, New York Fashion Week was 2 weeks prior to that. Help us understand now what it's transitioned into, and like, what are the economics of a fashion show? Because I did, for the first time in my life, have a chance to go. I went to Harlem Fashion Rose show, which was amazing. I've been a huge supporter of Brandeis for a really long time. And what I saw there, one, I was like, this is really expensive. Like, I think I was not expecting the theatrical nature of it all.
Yeah, they're huge marketing campaigns, basically. Like, I look at a fashion show as the opportunity for the brand to really infuse, like, sometimes millions of dollars into these marketing moments. So a fashion show operates on a bunch of different levels. So we have editors and buyers in the rooms who are sort of studying the trends and then going back to their respective corners and saying, this is what we think that the Marie Claire woman will want to wear. The Bergdorf buyer is saying, this is what we think the Bergdorf customer would like to wear. We have the influencers in the room who are speaking to their own respective audiences as well. So we have people in those spaces who have 5 million followers on Instagram, 20 million followers on TikTok, whatever it may be. And they are distilling the trends for their audiences as well. They're bringing their audiences into this like very sort of small exclusive room. And then we have the makeup artists, we have the stylists, we have the creative director who's putting it all together. We have the movement director who's telling the models how they should walk down the runway, you know, and they're turning these runway shows into, as you said, theatrical experiences. Everything that goes into a fashion show, like when you see it on your phone or when you see it on sort of like a computer experience, it can look unassumingly easy, if I can say that.
Looks
right?
effortless.
It looks effortless, but there are so many people that go into making this like 20-minute experience that's sort of like here today, gone tomorrow, and costs like millions of dollars to put on.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And the return on investment then as the designer is my items are getting picked up. I have more shelf space. People are buying things.
People are buying things, people are seeing it. It's a lot of sort of raising brand awareness, which is why when we look at smaller designers who may not have shows, or smaller designers who think they have to have a show to be able to play, you know, in the same space as a Vuitton or a Gucci, like that's just not necessarily the case. And it's not feasible because they don't have the money that is necessary to create a show experience like that.
And then is there like a regulatory nature? Like who gets to decide what days people go and don't go? Like how does that work?
I mean, it depends on where you are. In Paris and in Milan, there's like a governing body who sort of handles that. In New York, the CFDA weighs in on it. It used to be one person sort of like handles the entire calendar, and they would go out and like talk to all the designers and to make sure that, you know, everyone is able to show at the right times, and the editors and the buyers and everyone can get from Brooklyn to Harlem to Midtown and not in like a crazy way, and be able to make all of these shows. It's gone a little off the rails in New York, I will say, but I think that the CFDA is doing a really good job of trying to bring it back together. So all of these designers do have an opportunity to show in their hometown.
Incredible. Okay, so walk me behind the scenes of what happens like after you get back. So you just went to Milan.
Mm-hmm.
What happens
What's
after?
going on
like,
now?
Yeah, like what are you like, here's the things we loved? Like what is
That's a part of it, definitely. So New York Fashion Week is first, and then London, and then Milan, and then Paris. And this happens twice a year: spring, summer, fall, winter. It's called Fashion Week, but usually it's 4 months. So we call it Fashion Month. And after Fashion Month, we all sort of come back. We have a meeting where we go over the trends that we want to back, the things that we think the Marie Claire woman really cares about. And we set off on writing our stories. We sort of plot stories that we want to write for our print magazine that comes out twice a year, the designers we want to interview for upcoming issues. And yeah, the Fashion Month moment is sort of like the kickoff of that next trend cycle. And so from there, we figure out how we like action on all of those things.
Okay. And what is the staff that is doing this? What is that role?
So I have a staff of about 15 people across fashion and beauty and culture. The fashion team is, I believe, a team of 6, I want to say. And they are the people who are at the shows. They are going backstage. They're speaking to the designers. We are taking social media content to put on our various platforms, working with our social team to say like, hey, this moment just happened here. You know, we should get that up on Instagram or TikTok immediately. So the team is small compared to somewhere like Vogue or Harper's Bazaar or that sort of thing. But what's nice about working, I think, at like a lifestyle magazine is that we don't have to cover every single fashion moment that happens. We can really think about our woman and what is applicable to her life and how that fits into her life. Like we always say that our woman is trend oriented. She's not necessarily trend driven. So it's really about figuring out how certain trends that we see can work in her day to day.
That makes sense. What are your thoughts on the rise of these influencers, like being invited to shows? Like I saw the Jules, you know, the Demouillard.
She was at Bottega.
Yeah, she was at Bottega. And I
love
was
it.
like, I was fucking thrilled for her.
I love it. I ran up to her and I was like, I love it. I saw her at the show and I was like, I love that you're here. I think it's so important that you're in this room. Not only does this sort of continue to democratize the space and democratize who is allowed in these spaces, but I think it's really important to sort of just be cognizant of the fact that like, yes, these are trade shows in their essence, but like that's continuing to evolve. And I always say that everyone can eat, right? So there's space at this proverbial table for the influencers, for the substackers, for the editors, for the buyers, for the clients, which I personally think are the most important people in the room, the VICs. And so I don't see a problem with opening up the space a little bit. And I'm not as precious about who's allowed in the room, because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they would have looked at me and been like, oh, you're a website editor, you're a blogger. Like, what are you doing here? Like, print only. So I'm
Right.
very cognizant of that sort of speak around who's allowed in these rooms, because I just know that like 10 years ago, people looked down on the fact that I worked on the internet.
Right. Let's talk about your career. How did you get here?
How did I get here? It was a cold day in 1986. No, I'm kidding. I graduated from UVA in 2007, and I knew that I wanted to move to New York, and I knew that I wanted to work in media. I'd done internships at Elle and Harper's Bazaar, and my sister let me sleep on her couch, and she helped me get my first internship, but she'd always said, like, don't embarrass me. And so I held that very close to my heart and just continued sort of to like stack my jobs. So my first job out of college was an unpaid internship at Elle.com. And from there, I had worked at Vanity Fair and I worked at InStyle. And when I was at InStyle, I applied for a digital job at Glamour. And I think that that is sort of like where the trajectory of my career really changed. And I had friends who were just like in the nascent stages of blogging, and I saw all the opportunities they were getting. They were getting into these rooms, they were meeting new people, and hierarchy was so important in the print world. And I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to move up in the way that I wanted to if I didn't make a change. And so I hopped over to digital at glamour.com. So I worked at glamour.com for a couple of years. And then from there, I went to Elle.com. And that's where I say, like, I worked with an Avengers squad of women, like Sally Holmes, who's the editor-in-chief of InStyle right now, Leah Chernikoff, who's the executive editor of Harper's Bazaar, Julie Schott, who's the founder of Starface and Blip and all of these other like amazing brands. I was just surrounded by excellence there. And so again, being able to work in that space was like really cool. And we were just young and just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what stuck. Like we really could try anything. There were no sort of guardrails for better or for worse at that time. And from Elle.com, I went to GQ print. I was a little burnt out after Elle.com. And I was sort of like, do I want to be a digital director? I'm not really sure if that's what I want to do after working in fashion for so long. So I like to say I took a sabbatical and went to menswear for a year. The pandemic hit though. And so working in print during the pandemic was a really crazy time. Like we were trying to do photo shoots and getting clothing and get, you know, a camera to Rob Pattinson so he could shoot himself in London before the borders closed. Like really, really crazy moments. You know, in 2019, like I had an assistant bring me my computer and then I like just didn't see the GQ team again. Basically, like that was it, because Harper's Bazaar came calling and I became the digital director there for a couple years and was reunited with Sumaira Nasser, who's the editor-in-chief there, and Leah. And so at Bazaar, again, it was just surrounded by excellence. Like Sumaira is one of the smartest, most well-dressed women who works in fashion today. And I felt so honored to be on her team during a time when there's a convergence of all of these things, right? So it was 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement was taking off. We were coming out of the pandemic. Joe Biden was just elected. There was the insurrection. Like so many things were happening during that. Yeah, there's a lot going on during that time. And I felt very, you know, honored to sort of be a steward of Sumaira's vision in the digital sense for the site. But then Marie Claire came calling, and that's how I ended up here. Hillary Kerr, who's the chief content officer at Future, came to me, and she had let me know that she'd sort of been watching me, I guess, on social and through all of the things that I've been doing. And she had me interview for this role, and it's been a year now that I've been here.
Yeah.
What a journey. Wow.
What a journey. I mean, that's incredible. I think you've been able to see a variety of leadership styles and also a variety of publications that are, you know, more tried and true industry, but then also lifestyle. To your point, Marie Claire, I think, has been so consistent with the voice and who they speak to, like professional women. And I'm curious, because of the digital world, because people are still partially like working remotely, like I work remotely, our whole company is remote. Of course, we're seeing a huge mandate to return to the office. but also our generation of women is doing a lot. We are like working women. We are moms. We are maybe not moms. We are like the cat ladies, as DT would say. We are all the things. How have you had to evolve your own thinking about the multi-hyphenate nature of women?
Right. So one of the reasons why I was ready to come to Marie Claire is because Marie Claire has always been a space for women of substance, right? We say that it's a space for women of power, purpose, and style. And that after everything that was going on in 2020, that really aligned with where I wanted to be in my life and the things that I wanted to talk about. I have plenty of friends who are becoming moms, going through, fertility journeys.
Yeah.
They are dating, they are founding their own businesses, they are negotiating for contracts, and all of those things are conversations that I've always been having in my group chats, right? And so when I went to Marie Claire, it was really important to me to be able to sort of bring that group chat to life in the pages of our magazine, which we publish twice a year, in our digital issues, which we publish 4 times a year, or day-to-day stories that go up on the site, our social platforms, my podcast, my newsletter. So I think there was just an opportunity for me at Marie Claire to speak to this multi-hyphenate woman in a way that working solely in fashion wasn't giving me. And I know that like the Marie Claire woman, yes, she cares about fashion, of course, but she cares about so many other things, right? And so it's really wonderful to be able to work at a lifestyle publication that can give her all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, when I go to the website, I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Let's talk about collagen.
Okay, so you don't have cortisol face, right? And then these are the fall trends you should be wearing. And this is what's happened. Here's how you negotiate. And here's how this person did buy their house. And I think that Marie Claire is one of those few spaces that still can give a woman sort of like that one-stop shop.
I completely agree. And now a word from our sponsor, HelloFresh. With Afrocheck right around the corner and my book pre-order about to launch, life is nothing short of chaotic, my friends. Between prepping for the event, wrapping up work, and just the buzz of excitement at my house, I have such a hard time finding time for nutritious meals. That's why I'm incredibly grateful for HelloFresh. They deliver fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes right to my door weekly. When I'm juggling work and family and gearing up for this busy season, HelloFresh takes the pressure off meals. It's a lifesaver. Their new Build-A-Plate meals gives me the flexibility to customize without the extra cooking. One meal for the whole family, including baby, with something that everyone loves. And for a limited time, kids eat free. So go to HelloFresh.com/JourneyKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while a subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/JourneyKids. Even during this busy time, HelloFresh ensures I have time to enjoy a great meal. No wonder they're America's #1 meal kit. If you're anything like me, you didn't start a business to spend the bulk of your time managing your finances. Between budgeting, tracking expenses, and staying organized for tax time, there goes a good chunk of your day. Get back to doing what you love and let Found do the rest. I've always wondered why there wasn't a baking tool designed specifically for us, small business owners who need something simple, cost-effective, and tailored to our needs. I used to waste money and time every single month juggling multiple apps and complicated accounts, and now Found has a solution for all of that. Found is an all-in-one business banking solution designed for small businesses and solopreneurs. Seriously, it's an absolute game changer. With Found, you can manage your money, track your spending, send invoices, pay contractors, and even handle your own taxes all in one app. No more jumping around between 5 different tools just to keep your business running. And I'm not the only one who's loving Found. Just listen to what one of their users had to say. Found has made managing my small business finances so much easier. I used to dread tax season, but now it's a breeze with all of the tools that Found provides. If you're ready to simplify your business finances and get back to doing what you love, check out Found. Over 500,000 small business owners have already made that switch. Try Found for free at found.com/journey. Sign up for Found for free today at found.com/journey. It's a really busy fall. We have an election. It's a tough time to be a woman. I love being a woman, but I had a baby 10 months ago, 11 months ago. So as a new mom, I'm also thinking through I live in Tennessee. He's a Black boy.
Wow.
Are we going to stay here? Are we not going to stay here? Safety. gun laws. I mean, there's just so many things that as
Mhm.
women, I feel like we are thinking about any given day. And then at the same time, I'm like, look at my Dyson Airwrap. I love it. Like, I just feel
We
like
contain multitudes, and that's fine. And that's the thing that I think women they get in their heads about, and they get really sort of like down on themselves about sometimes. Like, it's okay to like your Dyson hair wrap. Like, it is a great product, right? And it's okay to care about, and you should care about gun laws and the safety of your little Black boy that you are raising in Tennessee. Like, we cannot, as women, and we should not feel like we have to compartmentalize our interests, right? Like, men
Mhm.
don't have to do that. No man is ever asked to do that. And it's really only women who have to do that. And it's my mission to, when I think about Marie Claire, make it fine and make it acceptable and encourage women to bring all parts of themselves to the table.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. What are the things this fall that you all are really prioritizing, and how are you balancing the journalistic requirement of us all to be nonpartisan given the political climate? Like, I'll tell you at Blavity, we had a all hands about it last year and
Mm-hmm.
said, like, as an employee at our company, what are your expectations of us as a place of work? What
Mm.
are your expectations of me as your leader?
What'd they say?
And, it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a lot of like righteous, down for the brow, like
Mm-hmm.
people at our
Mm-hmm.
company, as we should. Like, if not us, then literally where?
Yeah.
So they said a few things. They said they actually didn't want us to endorse candidates.
Mm-hmm.
They did not want us to pick individuals
Mm-hmm.
across up and down the ballot. And we weren't even just talking about the presidential election. And I thought that was smart. Like, I agreed with them, but I wanted to, I knew what my preference was, but I wanted to hear from them what their preferences were. We had played it really safe in previous elections. We've gone both ways. We've had every presidential, in the primaries, we've had every presidential person who was running for office. This was back when Cory Booker and Kamala
Mm-hmm.
and everybody, this was Hillary world, in the office and do interviews. We spent about $1 million on our political coverage
Wow.
with no return on investment. But
Wow.
that was because that's what we wanted to do at the time. And then, we've had election seasons where we are very neutral and just focus on get out the vote. And I think this election, people were very much like, there are issues that adversely impact Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And if our mission is to super serve and apply pressure for our demographic, then we need to be more vocal. So we hired political creators. That was the other thing. We wanted it to be not our staff
Mm-hmm.
that had to
Mm-hmm.
have a point of view, but to pay other people who have a point of view that we are comfortable with to be the voice. So we paid content creators, and we're actively paying content creators on retainer to say, great, make 10 videos about the importance of these things, highlight local issues that we know people might care about. So we hired someone for climate and racial equity and the social impact and environmental impact of different decisions and different things on the ballot. And then we hired someone to talk about, she does what we call pretty girl politics. So she's like, get ready with me while we talk about da-da-da,
Yeah. Yeah.
And the content is performing over our average normal content. It's doing very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Marie Claire is approaching it in a similar way, right? So we approach it through issues.
Mhm.
So maternal health and abortion rights will always be and has always been an issue that is near and dear to Marie Claire readers and to Marie Claire, right? And so we will cover the various aspects of that and how they present themselves. When it comes to this election specifically, we are focusing on the female middle-aged voter and getting more of those women to register to vote, because we
Mhm.
know that this section of women is often ignored,
Mhm.
right? And so it was important to me to speak directly to them and learn about them. And then we also know that they have a Gen Z person in their life that they can influence. And
Mhm.
so you get like two birds with one stone, right?
Right.
And so we are doing a voter initiative package that is coming out in a couple weeks that speaks to all of that and to the issues that they care about and where they are sort of like in their, I guess, political journey. So we think about it more from an issue standpoint. I don't think that, and I won't pretend to think that Marie Claire is full of only liberal women and readers who live on the coast. I think that would be doing a disservice, and is sort of how many places landed in thinking that Hillary was going to win this election, right? Is because we sort of ignored all of the other people who live in this country and who vote.
Yes.
that don't live on the coasts. And so, as I said, I don't like to think that it's only coastal people who we have to pay attention to.
Right.
And we go at it through more of an issues-based lens.
Yeah, I think that's important. And we've noticed too, same thing, right? Like the Black voter is unsure in some areas, in lots of areas actually. And so this assumption that,
and conservative, like they can be a conservative person, right? And so we can't assume anything right now.
At all.
All we know is that we need to talk about issues and that we need to encourage people to register to vote.
Yes. And when you talk about facts, I would also argue.
Also facts,
I mean, there's
yes.
been a lot of...
I was going to say that goes without saying. However, we must say we need to talk about facts because that does not go without saying.
It doesn't go without
election.
saying. And I think that also what we've noticed on our pages, and I don't know if it's happening on your pages so much, we've noticed an increase of bots with keywords. So we know that if we post with an XYZ caption, we're going to attract a lot of people who look like they are real. It's in some ways race baiting our audience. And then it creates this whole conversation in the comments. And I'm like, wait, you guys, these are not real people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It happens to us every election. And I'm not exactly sure how to, we'll flag them, etc. But the level of bots, they're very smart. They're basically they're duplicating other people's pages so that the page itself looks very real, but it's really just a copy paste of somebody else's page.
That's
and then they're commenting. So it's really hard to tell that they're not a real person.
Yeah, that's so scary.
Yeah, it's very advanced.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that it's probably more advanced than we even know because now that we can recognize it now, I'm sure it's been going on for so long.
I have chills. That is actually terrifying.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
The same thing's happening on TikTok. The reason I actually got a hold of it and started paying attention was because my TikTok kept getting cloned. So if you search my name on TikTok, there's 10 versions of me and they'll just change an underscore, a one or exclamation point, but they're DMing people. So I have women in my DMs who are like, hey, I was just having this conversation with TikTok. Just want to confirm it's you. And I'm like, it's definitely not me.
Whoa.
They're engaging with people.
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
So facts matter.
Facts matter.
Facts matter. Media literacy matters. All of that. It's really important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Okay. So trends. Are we wearing suede or no?
We're definitely wearing suede, 100%. Trends, speaking of TikTok and the trend cycle, I hit my breaking point with trends over the summer. TikTok.
It's a lot.
And social media was really just on overdrive. And it frustrated me a little bit because I just felt like it was not fair to the average consumer, right? It made you... The consumption is crazy. It's really crazy. When we go from clean girl aesthetic to mob wife to cottage core to country core, whatever, all you're saying is that you have to throw out your last wardrobe and buy a whole new wardrobe. And that is such a dangerous, just irresponsible message to send not only to younger people, but just people of any age. And so, yes, while I do love suede and have loved suede, suede is not new. Suede has been around since the 70s.
Suede. What are we
Your mom was wearing suede. Suede is big in the 70s. It's coming back. And the trend cycle, again, you just need to figure out and choose what works for your lifestyle. And so I'm much more interested in Marie Claire, subsequently is much more interested, yes, in trends, but also in personal style.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can't buy personal style, you need to have a lived experience to then develop your personal style.
Yeah, I think it's really actually challenging for the everyday woman. I'll even speak for myself. When I first started my company, I felt like I had to dress like a Silicon Valley startup founder, which at the time meant very androgynous, all black jeans, black boots. So I had a little height and then my startup t-shirt, and that was my uniform. I remember moving from San Francisco to LA and having a box full of Blavity t-shirts because that was my uniform. Really?
What's your real style though?
I don't know.
That can't be
yet. Actually.
I was like, that can't be your real style.
No, gosh, no. I have thrown all of those out. I'll occasionally wear a Blavity t-shirt, but not often. But I'm still trying to figure out my style. I think that it's been really hard for me actually because
post-motherhood as well, I'm assuming.
Yes, actually not as much momhood, more so feminine, and allowing myself to be feminine. So as a female executive, I was very cautious about coming off as feminine and distracting men, although I'm sure they should be able to control themselves and all the things. I still felt like as a pretty-ish
Right.
woman,
So your
I
heels can't be
should,
too high.
yeah, I didn't want to be, boobs out. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want, like, I was hair back glasses on for a few
Wow.
years. Like,
Wow.
even like I kept my curly hair. Like, I did not straighten my hair. Like, I was very hyper aware of, I do not want to distract these men, because I had to have business dinners. I had to have, let's meet up for happy hour and have this conversation. And I didn't want it to turn into
Something else.
something else. And honestly, at times it did turn into something else. Of like, one of my boyfriends was a VC. Two of my boyfriends were a VC in my 20s, and I learned a lot. Like, it was like that,
Yeah.
It was super
Yeah.
helpful, but like,
Yeah.
and they were great men, by the way. I was not, don't y'all come after me. They were great men. We
There
had
are good
mutual
men. It's
interests.
okay.
Yeah. But also, I didn't want every interaction to be that way. So then I kind of went into the, don't look at me, let's talk about our business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then as I became more of a public figure, then I had what I would call show clothes. Like, I'm on stage in front of 30,000 people at Grace Hopper. I can't blend in. Like, I need to
Like,
stand
what are
out.
your panel pants? Or like,
Right.
what are you wearing? Yeah. That's really interesting that you talk about that. I think it all, again, sort of boils down to figuring out your personal style, right? And what I think is confusing when it comes to TikTok and when it comes to Instagram is there are so many sort of like definitions or words or ways to study. Like, yeah, there are just so many like prescriptive, I think, sort of ways that people talk about style instead of doing the way you would sort of figure out your personal style before social media, which is like examining your day to day, examining what your life brings you, sitting outside, people watching, like sitting on a park bench somewhere, people watching, being like, oh, I like that. I think I have something kind of similar like that at home, or I can finesse these jeans to sort of like look like that.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of like introspection that it takes to really develop your personal style has been lost because these social media platforms or TV or anything, we just have so much fed to us that tells you how to do personal style as opposed to like really cultivate it.
And I think that's what's hard is like, I don't feel like I have a consistent look. Like sometimes I go to meetings and people are like, they don't even recognize me. I'm like, this is just what I look like today. And my weight also, I'm 4'11". So my weight fluctuates.
You're 4'11"?
Yes, I'm super short. So yeah, me and Sabrina Carpenter. So we are short ladies. And so my weight fluctuates. I gained 45 pounds when I got pregnant. So all of those cute little size 2, size 4 things, I went up to size 10.
Wow.
So I believe in my general, like, women will fluctuate. So I just put everything in storage, hoping one day in a couple of years, we'll get back to that size. But, all that stuff was tailored to the gods. So I'm like, there ain't no way to squeeze back into this. Blah, blah, boom.
And listen, you may not want to. What I think is also interesting is that, putting that stuff in storage gives you the opportunity, again, to like work with the small sort of subset of clothing that you may have and really think like, is this something that I need in my life, or is this something that I can just appreciate from afar? Like this fashion week, there were people walking around in 6-inch Prada heels and I loved it. I was like, this is so, so cute. But then I had to like talk to myself and really be like, girl, you run around this city all the time. You hate taking cars. You prefer to take the subway. You prefer to walk. Like that 6-inch heel is just something that you have to appreciate from afar. Like art. It's like art. You just look at it. It's never going to be in your home one day. And that's fine, right? Because you can just be like, that's cute. But in my day to day, it's more of like a 2-inch Prada pump. And that's cool.
And that's fine too. Yes, I definitely have a row of Gucci heels that I will probably never put on again.
Decoration. Or sell it and get some shoes that you can actually wear. It's up to you.
It's definitely hard to part ways with things. I think the other thing that I've really been curious about, I wonder what your thoughts are on this platform, but like to know it, people are using it really like a storefront in some ways. Like these women are sellers,
They're business women.
They are
business women. And it is fascinating to watch. I remember having a meeting with the team behind Like to Know It when they first
husband and wife team. They're amazing.
So when they first launched, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be something, because in the way that we have sort of like, you had your Mary Kay women and you had your Amway women, like these people have just figured out another way to make loads of money. And there are women who are like, listen, I don't have time to figure out my personal style. Like, you look good. That's what I want to look like. Click. Thanks. Like, goodbye. Moving on to the next. And so these, women who are using Shop My or Like to Know It are like personal shoppers for people, and they develop these relationships with their followers, and they are quite lucrative because of the relationship that they're able to cultivate.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's like they're walking billboards, and they are also, what I've noticed, I think one of the challenges that I have with it is like, oh, you're just buying this stuff to show us so that we would then go buy the thing. So
it's a circle.
It's a really terrible circle. So like, there's no way you need all this stuff. Like, there's this one woman that I follow that does dupes on the Yellow app. I haven't bought anything.
I don't believe in dupe culture.
I'm so tempted. Like, I want to be like, nah, but I just love to look at it.
Listen, it's so hard. Dupe culture is so complicated. I think it has gone through a really pretty rebrand.
Yeah.
Somehow knockoffs became dupes.
I know. I'm like, wait, are we talking about?
We're talking about knockoffs, which have been rebranded as dupes. And that is, whatever. That's just like how culture sort of exists and redefines itself. But I am more interested in the people who like don't copy and paste and go through the exercise of like digging in their closets and figuring out again, like how they can finesse something to make it work, rather than like buying the Amazon version of it.
Or like vintage. I think the challenge, in my opinion, the reason why dupes have made a resurgence is because they can be mass produced and mass consumed. Previously, we were all vintage and thrifting. And like, there was a vintage shop here in Nashville that I loved that was like vintage luxury. And like, I would go and I would shop it. And like, that would just be like part of my activities. And it was so fun. Like, I would save up my money to be like, okay, I want a Chanel bag. And like, I would go, and Nashville has so many glamorous country music stars that they have this crazy wardrobes that they only wear 2-3 times. The stuff is pristine.
Yeah.
And that was so fun. The challenge with thrifting is you cannot mass consume it. So if you're a thrifter and someone's like, oh my God, I love this look, I love this thing, you can't like pop up a Like to Know It because it's gone.
Right, exactly. But there used to be a sense of like, oh, it's vintage. Like, I remember when I moved to New York, if you were wearing Zara or H&M, you never said that. You said you were wearing vintage because there's more prestige, or there was more prestige in being like, oh, it's vintage. Like,
I need that to come back.
I hunted for this. Yeah. I spent my time. Like, I have an
family
understanding.
Heirloom.
Love an heirloom. Oh, it was, it's personal jewelry. What's that mean? Oh, it's been handed down through generations.
It's costume jewelry from my grandma.
Right, exactly. But that's very chic, right? And so there was sort of like this prestige in saying that it's vintage. But now I think there is more prestige and like, sadly, looking like everyone else, or copying and pasting your favorite influencers look instead of like creating it on your own.
Yeah. The definition of an it girl is that you have figured out with your economic status how to look like these women that are aspirational. And it's everything from the filler structure to the hair, all the people doing the Mormon wives like curl. I'm like, don't do the Mormon wives curl.
You don't have to. You don't have to. There are other ways to look cool.
Like everybody.
I promise there are other ways to look cool.
I agree. And I think it's just the effort, though, to your point. Like, it does require an intentionality, and we're also busy. So I hope that even for myself personally, I have tried to not buy as much. So like, if I am doing a show run, like I have Afrotech coming up and we're looking at different things, I'm like, okay, can I work with a Black designer? Like, can I say, hey, I have this thing, and how can I make this helpful, use this as a moment to be helpful to other people? Does it require more effort? Yes, of course. But,
yeah. And planning.
But like, also, if I view my life as different moments and milestones, looking back and saying, you know what, I really loved that look because it was designed by my friend Nicole Linnell, and like, that was amazing. That to me matters, versus there's definitely shows that I've done where I'm like, I couldn't tell you what I wore.
It's like, who knows? And it's like, where did you get it from? And for me, I think a lot about my life through clothing and through what I've worn for these special moments. And I have a lot of pieces from 10, 15 years ago. My first Chanel bag that I ever bought myself, like, those things are very sentimental to me. And as you said, that's very hard to part with those things. And so I think it's important, honestly, to shop in that way rather than just sort of buying the Amazon knockoff because you can.
Because you can.
Mm-hmm.
Switching gears, one more topic. I am a 2025 bride.
Nice.
Which is so fun. And I'm curious how you all approach the milestones in women's lives, like from an editorial perspective. Like, you guys aren't a bridal magazine, obviously, but you do.
And the bridal industrial complex is so wild to me. It is crazy.
I have been shocked at the level of consumerism in this industry. And I actually just did a TikTok. I was like, are you guys going into debt? Because I'm rich and I can afford this, but I don't want to. I don't want to pay these prices.
Everyone is going into debt over all of the things that people have to do for weddings, for bridal showers, for baby showers, for all of the milestones, the bachelorettes, all of those things. You know, when I think about weddings specifically, because at Harper's Bazaar, we did cover weddings and we covered a lot of really, really expensive weddings. But, you know, the joke internally was like, just go to a store and say that you want a white dress. Like, don't say wedding anywhere, ever. Just tell people that you're throwing a party for 150 people and you need to wear a white dress, right? Because the second you say wedding, it becomes a whole other production and you find yourself going into debt over like flowers and table settings.
Well, what's fascinating is actually the dress has been like the most reasonable part. Like, I've gone into different dress shops and like, oh, this is like $2,000. Like, that's fine. And then I try on a $10,000 dress and it's like a marginal difference, maybe like beading and details, like that kind of stuff. But I'm a simple girl, so I'm not going to be like, glam, you know? That's not my problem. It's the venues. It's like all the bells and whistles, like everything else. I just think that like as people who do thought leadership on behalf of others, like we have to all come together and really say, hey, you don't have to do it this way.
You definitely don't have to do it this way. I find weddings in particular to be very, very interesting. And I'm seeing a new trend where people are just sort of being like, you know what, we're just going to do City Hall and we're going to buy a house instead. Or we're going to do City Hall and we're going to have a small intimate dinner, especially people in New York where weddings, you want to have like a baseline sort of run of the mill wedding. It's going to cost you $60,000. Minimum. And you have to decide if that's the amount of money that you want to spend on these things. And so, yeah, when in terms of like thought leadership, I think the number one thing that we think about when we discuss weddings is just making sure that everyone knows that they don't have to do it in a specific way. And then also like when you see these weddings on Vogue Weddings or when you see these weddings on Bazaar Weddings, Brides, whatever, like these people are rich. They're very, very wealthy.
Yeah, these are just women and men.
Princesses, princes, like this is
but even saying that, I'm like, there are women who are like, I want to be perceived like that.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. I don't think it's worth it either.
It's not worth it.
I don't think it's worth it. And I'm like, the budget for Afrotech is in the millions. Like, I know what it costs to do $1 million productions. It's no thank you. That was fun.
And that's the thing that as I do more events for Marie Claire, you know, we put on this event twice a year called Power Play.
Right.
And I know what it cost to put on an event like that.
Feed these people.
Right. To feed these people, to like put them up in hotels, all of the things. I'm like, this is a very expensive proposition for 8 hours of your day. Now, look, I don't want to knock it because oftentimes this is the most like glamorous, special moment of somebody's day, but there's so much life after it.
Yeah.
That you probably should spend your money on, not necessarily just this one day. So just like keeping that in mind as well is really important.
Yeah, I think that's also fair. We do have to acknowledge that we live glamorous lives. We get glammed all the time. Yeah. We have photos taken of us. We have once a quarter at a minimum.
Yeah.
We're doing a whole thing, probably more like once a month. So I have to acknowledge that.
But it's so much money.
It's a lot of cash. And to me, I'm like, not just money, it's post-tax cash.
Yes.
Like we're talking personal money that could be invested in the compounding interest. Don't get me started. But yes. Okay. Anything else that you want women to know? And how can women connect with you? How can they support the work that you're doing? The publishing industry is continuing to go through different transformations. We didn't even talk about AI and all those things. That's for another day. But like, what do you want us to know?
I mean, I think the number one thing that everyone needs to know is that you have to support journalism, right? And the way you support journalism is through your dollars. So don't skip over the paywall, subscribe, pay
Mm-hmm.
the money to your favorite Substackers, pay the money for your subscription to your magazines, to the newspapers. Like the money that you're paying is going towards fact checking, right? And so that's really important when we're going into an election. If you want journalism or if you value journalism, you have to pay for it. I think for a very long time, we've gotten around having to spend our own money on these things, right? Because of the advertising complex that used to support magazines or supported newspapers. But now the industry has changed and we really need financial support from people. So that's the number one thing.
I have been so hesitant to charge our readers for Blavity because I also know that once you do start people paying for things, it also comes with a level of customer service and a level of accuracy. And there's a middle ground that's actually very hard to maintain in terms of quality of journalism. 5,000 people or 10,000 people paying us $5.99 would actually not be enough to support the level of journalism that somebody's perception of them paying $5.99.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Because for $5.99, you think you get this. And
Correct.
It's like, no, this is what that supports. But I do think that there should be maybe more transparency around that then, right?
Yeah.
So like we have this column on MC called The Cost of Starting Your Own Business, right? And you should actually be in it. We'll talk about that later. But it's like the mental and emotional costs of starting your own business, right? But also the financial implications of starting your own business. Yeah. And I don't think that people talk about it enough. And so the people who are paying these subscriptions think that, well, I paid this, so you owe me this, or you can only talk about like what I am paying for, right? Or what I think you should talk about. But like, that's not how these industries work. And so we need to be a little more transparent and a little more open about how they do work so people understand like where their dollars are going. Right. NPR does it. Wikipedia does it. Like,
PBS does it. Yeah. I think it's something that we've played with like time and time again. And we're also considering even a model where it's like, oh, okay, you guys can support the political writer. Like we even thought for this election season, because again, we don't make any money when we cover political stuff because all of our advertisers block those keywords. Well, I'm not going to get into it, but
paywall that stuff. And then I'm sure you'll find subscribers who want it and who will pay for it.
Right. Exactly. So we've thought about that, but then the logistics of it all, we're like, we'll just take the L. Keep it moving. But I think eventually, unfortunately, for a media business, we're going to have to move that direction. And I'm not looking forward to it, I'll be honest.
I know it's tough. I think that we've seen various ways that people can do it, right? And so there's like, maybe you get 3 articles for free a month and then you pay for the rest. I just know that when I look at New York Magazine, that is a subscription that I will always pay for. The New York Times, Washington Post, those are places that I will always pay for because the journalism is good. It's not just good, it's actually excellent. And the caliber is worth the money, and you need to invest in good journalism.
Yeah.
Like our literal democracy depends on it.
I know we all talk about democracy, but I'm like, we're literally actually talking about democracy, people. Democracy is not a given.
No. And it actually depends on it, especially when we're dealing with, you know, TikTok or whatever other social platforms where misinformation is just like rampant. We need people who can say, people with contacts and people with actual contacts places to say, no, that is not true.
Yes, we spoke to the White House.
I know the person in the White House, not this random bot on the internet that is pretending to know them. Like, no, we spoke to the White House. Like, not everyone can just do that, you know? And so totally. We have to support that work.
I think so too. I think you've encouraged me to rethink through my team if we want to explore that model with Blavity again. But yes, thank you so much for being here, Nikki. This was so fun.
Of course. This is great. I had so much fun.
Okay, so everyone can connect with you on your social.
Yes. Yeah. So you can follow me on Nikki Ogun on Instagram, mostly. TikTok, I'm there, but I'm scrolling and lurking. So you won't find me doing any dances or anything of the sort.
Yet.
And then season 2 of my podcast is coming back. So Nice Talk is a Marie Claire podcast where we talk about money, power, and style. 3 of my very favorite topics. And that's coming back in October. So you can listen then.
Well, thank you for being here today. And you guys go subscribe to the pod so you get the episodes when they drop.
Thank you.
See y'all later. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Journey podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review and head to our Instagram and YouTube to leave a comment. I look forward to hearing how this podcast has made an impact on your own journey.